Welcome to another episode of the Executive Code podcast. If you're new to the podcast, what we're here to do is talk about everything to help you on your journey to discover your life purpose and help you from a personal mastery perspective. I'm joined with a very, very special guest here today. His name is Arthur Samuel Joseph. So let me give you his formal bio before we get right into the actual conversation and get you content that's going to help you on your journey. Arthur Samuel Joseph is founder and chairman of the Vocal Awareness Institute, has taught globally for over 5 decades, and today is widely recognized as one of the world's foremost communication strategists and authorities on human voice. A renowned teacher and mentor, Arthur's vision. See, I'm going to stumble everything now on this podcast because we're talking everything to do with voice, Arthur, isn't that right? So I'm actually going to stumble on everything. But let me go back here again. A renowned teacher and mentor, Arthur's mission is to change the world through voice. His proprietary voice and leadership training program, Vocal Awareness, is designed to teach communication mastery through a disciplined regimen of highly specific techniques, vocal warm-ups, and storytelling skills to cultivate an embodied and enhanced leadership presence, as well as personal presence. What emerges is an integrative and integral communication style. Arthur, thank you so much for being on the Executive Code podcast.
Well, you're so welcome. Nice to be here. Really nice to be here.
It is absolutely great to have you here. For listeners, just let us know where you're beaming in from. Where are you located?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Excellent. And you have been to Ireland.
As I said to you when we were visiting before the podcast, I wish I was your neighbor. So just years ago, I think I wrote to you that a dear friend and student of many years standing is the renowned actor Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah.
And Pierce we were at a birthday party of his a number of years ago, and we're having a glass of champagne, and Pierce had heard my boring story about feeling Celtic from another life. And so he said, I'm leaving to do a movie in Ireland tomorrow. You and Rebecca should come along. And so he put me in touch with his assistant in Dublin, and he made all these arrangements, etc. We never did hook up in Ireland. We hooked up down the road having lunch in Malibu a few weeks later, just spontaneously. But that's what prompted my opportunity to go to Ireland for the first time. And I went to my bride and I went to the Connemara coast. And one of the reasons for going there was, and I don't know what's more bizarre about what I'm about to say, but was to see if I can go into the woods and see fairies. And I don't know what was more bizarre, the fact that I'd actually think I could see fairies, or that I had the desire to go and experience that. But in those woods on the Connemara coast, I experienced quiet unlike any other quiet I'd ever known in my life. It was amazing. So I didn't get to experience fairies, but I got to experience quiet. So
it's an amazing place, and if anybody hasn't visited the west of Ireland, they're missing something out of their life. I want to set the stage because for our listeners, they may not have heard of you, and you name dropped one person, which is our very own Irishman, which is Pierce Brosnan. But you've got a client list that ranges from Oscar winners such as Sally Field and Angelina Jolie to Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and many, many others, including international leaders in politics, business, and broadcasting, as well as world-class athletes and singers. Arthur, you have some client lists that people would literally, I'd rather not say the word, but would rather kill for. You've got an amazing client list of all the different people that you've worked with. It's such a story. Just to tell us a little bit about your journey to what has brought you to do the work that you're doing.
God has given me a great number of gifts, to be frank. And you've defined your life through your intuition. Mine is defined through sound. When I was 4, I knew music was my life. When I was 15, one of God's gifts to me was my first singing teacher. I have a master's in voice. I'm a classical singer by training. And then my teacher was about my age. I'm 76. And she was about mid-70s, and I was 15. In the middle of my lessons, I actually behaved this way. I would say, stop. No, I don't want to do it like that. I hear it this way. Manically clamping my hands to my ears. And she allowed this bizarre behavior from this 15-year-old kid because she knew something about me I didn't yet know. When I hear a voice, I hear immediately who you are. It's not perfect pitch like I can tell D from B flat anymore, but I get a complete imprint instantaneously. And her lack of dogma helped me create new form. Vocal awareness is a paradigm shift in communication. It's trademarked and copyrighted globally because I teach empowerment through voice. And notice I didn't just say I teach empowerment through voice. I said I teach empowerment through voice. Because I'm teaching us that it's not just the message, but the messenger. It's not simply what we say, but how we say it. And so this is my 58th year of teaching at this point. And it's my legacy time. And as you thoughtfully read, my vision has been to change the world through voice, which I can't do locked up in my garret teaching one-on-one. Thus, the opportunity to sit with really substantial human beings such as yourself to get to share it with the world because we can spread the word. So it's just evolved. It's simply evolved. I began teaching at 18 and vocal awareness became fully concretized in my early 20s. I have 7 rituals and I'm teaching communication mastery, which has never, ever been done before. In the arts and athletics, one is in mastery in their skill set, but we never known how to become a master as we speak, as we share who we are with the world. That's this work. And I obviously don't come up for air, so I'm intentionally coming for air so you don't just have to nod up and down with me. It's your show. I apologize.
No, it's absolutely fine because I'm not interjecting because I certainly want, because we're recording this on video so that people can watch it on YouTube. So I want to have people see you on the video as opposed to me. So hence the reason why I'm not interjecting. But what I really want to get for people, for our listeners, is this isn't just about voice coaching. This is what I sense is much, much deeper than that in relation to the work that you're doing. So while, yes, there's elements of that, but let's dive a little bit deeper in terms of what's the more inner work that you're doing for people to become a master with their voice. And as you say, empowerment through their voice.
My voice training is a metaphor. Yes, I'm helping you become the most effective communicator you can be. But the goal is really life mastery through the power of voice. So may I play with you, Paul?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So sit up straight, please, Paul. Sit at attention.
I didn't realize you were going to do this now, Harder, but go ahead.
Oh, I won't if you don't want me to.
No, absolutely. Go ahead. You're fine.
Sit at attention, Paul. And notice how you hold your breath. Did you observe that?
I hadn't until you brought my attention. Yeah.
But that is what happened, correct?
Yeah.
That's what happens when we go to present ourselves in front of people. How am I doing? Do you like me? We're all being judged. But instead, I never, ever want you to do that. Instead, we pull this golden thread from 3 inches below our navel. And if you join me in doing it, with 3 inches below our navel, it's like Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. This is the core where it all begins. And we slowly and gracefully pull this golden thread, embodying ourselves, in your case, as a magnificent man of stature. Feel this thread pulling taller and taller and taller. And now you notice that the first thing you've just done, not hold your breath, but inhale. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
and your internal and external space are instantly quieter. Am I correct?
Yeah.
And your chest lifted, your core engaged. So stature is claiming. So before we go out and speak anywhere, a Zoom meeting, an important phone call, this is the first step in what I call the creation of a mastery moment.
I don't know if I can come back or not.
And I'm an artist in my own right. I've taught renowned artists. I teach gazillion elite athletes. All have rituals before they perform or compete. But we don't use rituals in life. We just go about our day. Perhaps we pray or we meditate or something, but we leave it over there. We don't use it in the rest of our day. But in vocal awareness, we do. And it begins with that. May I use the word God?
Absolutely.
And for those who are listening who don't have that same belief system, we can substitute source, or we can substitute simply saying, thank you. So if I say for you to, I ask for you to say, thank you to God within yourself, but not aloud. Would you please embrace that thought? And you felt the inhale.
Yeah.
And the room just got instantly quieter, internally and externally. And that's the first of our 7 rituals. To say thank you. Because I'm teaching the concept of surrender, serve, and soar. Surrender meaning to yield or to give back. To be in service to our calling, to our vision for ourselves, for our life. But I've also observed over all these decades what are the 2 greatest fears each and every one of us confront, but we're not cognizant necessarily of doing so. The 2 greatest fears are abandonment and ownership of our power. Claiming ourselves and not being afraid of what others think of us while we're being ourselves. All the mixed messages, oh, don't act like that. What will people think? Well, you shouldn't say that. You sound arrogant. So if I say to you, Paul, vocal awareness is extraordinary work, can help you change your life in moments. Now that's stupid and arrogant. But if I say, Paul, vocal awareness is extraordinary work. It can help you change your life in moments. That's not arrogant. That's my truth. So as we surrender, as we say thank you, it begins to give us permission to be us. I'll skip the second ritual. Will you experience the third one with me, Paul?
Yeah.
Take a nice deep top of the morning breath. It's great to be alive. And exhale. Now, don't do that again. This next breath will take 5 to 7 seconds. We don't take it, we allow it. And I'm going to ask you to allow with your eyes on my face. My hand will be doing this, but just stay here. Allow a slow, silent, loving breath. You ready? Let's begin. A little fast. Let's slow that down, Paul. No rushing. Do not take. Simply allow. You ready? Let's begin. Lovely. Neck, shoulders loose. Keep inhaling. Keep inhaling. And exhale. That's fundamentally different, you see. And it illustrates that a breath is not only physical, it's emotional. You presented attention, you held your breath. I changed the word from take to allow, and you don't know this, but I'm about to share it with you. I returned you to your primal breath. Scientifically, that breath is called an intercostal diaphragmatic breath. It's the breath of a newborn. We expand as the bellows. I need oxygen quickly. But as we mature, we circumvent that. We breathe more shallowly, all this kind of stuff. That's just behavior. But I'm teaching, Paul, that we're not our behavior. That's just how we behave, but is that who we are? So now I'm beginning to introduce you also to the concept of choice. That every single thing in life revolves only around two things: to choose to do something or to choose not to. Never matters how scary, how seemingly daunting. All that matters is how badly I want it. Even in abdication, I make a choice by walking away. But in vocal awareness, my whole vision, my whole commitment to you is, does that choice empower you or disempower you? And once again, it begins with stature, source. We skipped the second ritual. We went into the third, which is to allow a slow, silent, conscious, loving breath and enjoy it while we do so. And we return you to your primal breath. So I'm not teaching you something new there. I'm simply showing you what we all give away. It's been lying dormant, waiting to be rediscovered. And you will discover that it changes the tone of your voice, the presence of how you sense yourself, ... And if we look up the Latin root for the word spirit, spiritus, it simply means to breathe. I don't want you to motivate your audience, but I do want you to inspire them. Inspirare, to breathe into them. The Hebrew word neshama means both soul and breath. So once again, this is how I invoke mastery, conscious awareness. That great athlete has refined these things over decades. That great artist on that stage, you have no idea what's going on in their head, but it's not what you're experiencing in the audience. It's all technique, all thinking. The joy is feeling what it's like in our bodies. The power of that, the passion, the joy, the release. But it's all technique. So these are the initial principles of this work. And when you said voice before, I also spell voice two different ways. Lowercase v, which is my speaking voice, and the capital V, which is my inner voice. And the sixth ritual is pay attention, deeper listening. Because vocal awareness isn't just about awakening consciousness, nor awareness, but a 360, conscious awareness, where I strive to remain attuned intra and interpersonally, in touch with this internal conversation between source and self that only I am privy to, while at the same time communicating out here. And then the whole purpose of that is the seventh ritual. Do you have a pencil or a notepad or something?
Yep.
Would you write the seventh ritual, please? Just be myself. And I presume you wrote two words, correct?
Yep.
Now write it as it's actually intended. It's three words, and the third word begins with a capital S. Does that energetically, emotionally feel a little different?
It changes the dynamic of it. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes. And notice, by the way, how your pitch and resonance is deeper. You hear it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the purpose of this work. And notice it didn't say present. For whose approval? So then we create our persona statement. The root of the word persona simply means through the sound. One's identity is largely conveyed through the sound of voice. If I say to you, Paul, I'm really happy to be here with you today. You're such a lovely man. Versus, Paul, I'm really happy to be here with you today. You're such a lovely man. First one's bogus, but we don't know why. It didn't occur to you that the pitch was too high and I spoke too fast. Didn't even dawn. The second one, you didn't think, well, Arthur breathed, his pitch went lower. And no, all you got was I was more authentic. So in the persona statement, you identify, how do I want to be known? That becomes my brand. We spend thousands of dollars in creating websites and all these kinds of things, color palettes and ... Then we show up and we don't even know how to communicate like what we wrote. I've written 5 books. I've got online courses and all of these things. And as you say, the nature of my clientele is what it is. But I've also taught Holocaust survivors. I've also taught deaf people to sing. I taught choirs on Skid Row in Los Angeles. So it's not just high-profile individuals. The common theme is we all have to breathe and we all have to communicate. I sell air. And in the last piece, before I come up for that air, is a hugely important technique called visceral language, also trademarked, conveying the emotion of words. I look at music, it tells me everything to do. How fast, how slow, how loud, how soft, how to attack a sound. But we have words. They don't tell us anything. They're just words. So I teach us how to see those words. And you'll notice if you choose to look back at this conversation, I literally see every word I say on the virtual computer screen in my mind's eye. And I see it annotated in visceral language. I see stress marks. I see full stops. I see underlines. And I'm always in my conscious loving breath. I'm always in what's known as the edge and arc of sound, so I can do whatever I want with it. All actively at the same time. And it's trainable. Now I really will come up for air. The rest of the show is yours. I hope I didn't overstay my welcome.
No, you absolutely didn't, because we could just go on so many different levels on this one. Am
I giving you the depth that you're interested in?
Absolutely. And I think I really want our listeners to get what...
And may I interrupt you?
Absolutely.
Will you tell me this with your eyes on me? Sorry. Even while gathering your thought? And let's just set it up with a breath. And see that really word underlined. And you're going to speak at the apex of your breath. Don't exhale it. Breath is fuel.
What I really want to get for listeners is the extent of this understanding from this information.
How did that feel? Wasn't that neato?
It was. I was not expecting this on this podcast, but it's very, very different.
And you see, you weren't self-conscious anymore, but you were conscious of self, that capital S self.
Yeah.
It tuned you into listening and seeing just a little bit. And when we make eye contact, it literally changes the sound of our voice. And that's what I wanted you to experience and your audience to experience. I won't interrupt again. I just wanted you to have that.
Because it is actually one of those things that I do naturally do in terms of when I'm thinking and trying to reflect on, okay, so what is the question or what is the something that I want to say? I will typically look away.
We all do that.
Yeah.
And I don't care if we do that, but I don't want us to talk over there.
Yeah.
Come back here.
And that's the difference. Yeah. So as you say, it is trainable.
Yeah. And look how quickly. That's amazing, really.
If there was one thing that you could share for our listeners, because and again, there's so much you've already shared, Arthur. But take it from, if for perhaps maybe some of our listeners that might be saying, okay, so how can I apply this to my business? How can I apply this to myself? And I'm part of an organization which is the Professional Speaking Association, and the level of depth that you go into is huge. It's phenomenal. So I can absolutely see how it can be applied to people within that association. For the vast majority of people that will be listening to this podcast, whereby they're either looking to develop their own business or are running their own business, I have a huge understanding of how important voice is, because it is about, on the very top level, communicating a message, but it's how that message is actually shared, and the power that can be put within the voice, as you've literally already just demonstrated in these short few minutes that we've been together. What would you say to them in terms of what do you feel that they would get from, say, working with yourself, or having a better and deeper understanding of what you teach in terms of vocal mastery?
I, of course, teach all over the world, in person and in virtual. My books have been translated into multiple languages. And you cannot find this work anywhere else. I created it. I own this space. And I'm very good with language, obviously. But I don't want people to be seduced by my words. I want them to listen to the tone of my voice, feel the sanctity and the safety when I speak, the respect. And I want them to take away that from this, that this is trainable, and as you just subtly demonstrated, immediately accessible. But my responsibility isn't to you. It's the capital W work, the big work. And so I ask if anybody is interested, take one of my online courses. Set a short-term goal, a quarter, but really make that commitment. Think about midterms and finals. They're going on with or without you, so the night before, you're not getting any sleep. So create these structural imperatives. You have an important meeting coming up. You begin preparation a couple of weeks out. Yesterday morning at 6:30 a.m., I was on Zoom with a dear friend, client of many years standing, actually from Northern Ireland, who is the chairman of a global health company, because he had probably the most important meeting of his life coming up in half an hour. And we'd already been preparing it, but we just wanted to have this final touching base. And using a baseball metaphor, he hit it out of the park. He achieved everything he was there to achieve because he was in the work. And so the paradox is, it's all about us, Paul, and it has absolutely nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
That's the surrender piece. Yeah. We are both the vessel and the chalice. So I asked people, my last book is called Vocal Leadership, 7 minutes a day to communication mastery. And I'm honored that the commissioner of the National Football League wrote the foreword for this book. And I only share that because I was introduced to Roger Goodell is his name, by the owner of the Dallas Cowboys football team here in America. And so he's one of the most powerful CEOs of any corporation in the world. And I walk in there on a Tuesday at 11. And he's a very pragmatic left brain individual. And in a few minutes, I'm saying, sit in stature, say thank you to God. Oh, let's warm up like this. And if I was afraid, if I was thinking, oh my God, what is Commissioner Goodell thinking of me? I would have been a snack. He would have checked the box and say, Jerry, who is this crazy person? I don't want to ever see him again. Rather, we spent 2.5 hours together on a Tuesday. Because even though he didn't empirically understand, he trusted the messenger. And so I'm saying this because the other important takeaway, we want to claim our power. We want to really practice our work. Record introductions. Get on the mirror and practice that opening bullet for that slide presentation. Really, there's a TEDx talk on my website. It's 18 minutes. Even the day of, I was practicing 25 to 30 times. I want to put a stake through my heart. It was only the second or third presentation I ever wrote out in my life because I like riffing, because I know what I'm here to accomplish. But this was a very formal kind of moment, and it had to be exacting. But that's the work that I put in. I'm not asking anybody to be that intense about it, but it's preparation. So, am I answering your question, or once again, did I make it too convoluted?
People will get what they need to get. Because what I'm hearing is it's one thing knowing yourself. It's a very, very different thing being yourself. And even if I go back to the statement that you asked me to write down, which is be myself, it's very, very different. And I think people would need to re-listen to this podcast episode several times to get there's a lot of different things that you're actually communicating, Arthur. A lot of different things.
What you asked for.
Absolutely. Well, let me put it this way. As you said, let's play in the sandbox. And that's exactly what we've done because we had no preparation in relation to this podcast. I invite you on, giving an introduction to a mutual friend that we have. And it's been an absolute delight to get this opportunity to speak with you, Arthur.
May I end with one thought?
Absolutely.
Do I have 1 minute longer?
You can indeed.
This thought came to me in 1980. I was reading Quest magazine, and it wouldn't go away until it made me get up and write it down. Only paper I had was the magazine, which is framed on my studio wall today. It said, voice is the only artistic experience which is both finite and infinite at the same time. It is fallible and fragile, gone in an instant, unseen, only felt, remembered from the past, even a long moment ago, anticipated, sensing its future, even as its present is just occurring. It's temporal, visceral, organic. Such a complex, simple, and beguiling transcendent state. That's what came through full-born about 10 o'clock one night, 42 years ago.
Wow.
Began working with this thought over the next few years philosophically, from a voice science perspective, psychologically. And one of the things that I did was substituted another word for the word voice. Life is the only artistic experience which is both finite and infinite at the same time. Or love, it is fallible and fragile, gone in an instant, unseen, only felt. And I came to understand the paradigm of my work, which is to integrate life and love through the power of voice. Sorry for the phone interruption. And so we don't realize how much work it actually takes to beat ourselves. So I just ask you to give yourself permission to be as extraordinary as you are, and you laugh, you love so beautifully, so organically. I really appreciated our time today, and I thank you for your generosity.
And thank you, Arthur. Thank you. What is the best way for people to get in contact with you, Arthur?
They can write to support@vocalawareness.com. And my assistant forwards everything, and I answer every email personally. And that's the easiest way. And we're actually, Jennifer and I are launching a course together on October 4th on Mastery for Leaders. And it's a 7-week course with each episode is archived because people are in from all over the world, and at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I think in Australia is like 2 or 3 in the morning. And so sometimes people can't stay up, but it's archived. So we're doing that October 4th. And so that's a really good way, because we're also, I would offer for people to this podcast, if anybody signs up from this podcast, I will give them a significant discount. And if interested, let me know. And I think it's $199 would be the offering instead of $999. So
Wow.
So just because it's you.
Wow. That's hugely generous. Hugely generous.
Thanks.
Arthur, thank you so much for our time, and thank you so much for everything that you shared. I do believe, and I really, really encourage people to, if you're listening to this episode, go back over and re-listen to it, because there is so much content in here. And even just the practical exercises that Arthur had me doing, even if you're doing it for yourself, you'll get so much benefit from it. Arthur, thank you so much for being part of this podcast episode. But until next time, I wish you every success.